Alrighty, so now it's lesson time. So today you're going to share with us some tips and techniques for hot and fast smoking. Now I'm really fascinated with this because I really love the idea of being able to shorten the amount of time that I'm spending over the fire while still getting that delicious smoky barbecue taste. So I'm going to sort of just throw it over to you. I'm going to stay quiet, and yeah, you can share some wisdom with us all.
I think basically, cooking hot and fast basically changed everything for us. Being able to cook a brisket and a pork collar in 4 hours is just, it's great to do at home as well. You've sort of got to be a bit more careful with it. 300 is obviously the temperature we prefer to cook at, but you just sort of basically putting the meat on at 300, maybe wrapping it after an hour and a half, just waiting for that rub to set. So if you can put your finger on the meat and the rub doesn't come off, and it's got a nice color on it, wrap it, put a bit more liquid in it than what you'd normally put in it, just to sort of save that bottom from burning if it does get a bit too hot. Um, yeah, it's just so much easier at home, especially if you are, banking on a 7 o'clock dinner. You can sort of start, after lunch, instead of having to get up early in the morning to do it. So especially cooking direct as well. I mean, if you're cooking on a drum or a multi-cue or something like that, you get all that fat dripping down onto that coals, and it just adds another flavour profile to your meat. You get that vaporization, happening on your meat. So we're not even spritzing our meat anymore because of that. It's just the moisture that just stays in the chamber of the multi-cue. There's no need to sort of spritz anymore. So, and just getting that, obviously with the fat side down on a brisket, you get all that heat hitting that fat, and we don't trim it off. We just wait for it to go a nice sort of a golden brown, crispy colour, and then we wrap it there basically, and just eating that crispy fat on the bottom of a brisket is just yeah, beautiful.
Delicious stuff, yeah. No doubt about that at all. So when it does come to the 4 hour brisket, then I take it that it really comes down to sort of really understanding your process and understanding exactly at what particular minute you need to do stuff.
Yeah, yeah, there's a little bit of forgiveness there too. I mean, you've just got to keep an eye on it sort of every half an hour or so. So we put the brisket on. After an hour, we would check it, and if the bark's if the bark's set and it's the colour that we want, we'll just wrap it with probably about half a litre of beef stock in the foil. Wrap it back up. We put the fireboard probe in it, and we'll just keep an eye on that. So once that sort of starts getting up to about the 200 mark, we'll sort of unwrap it and just start probing it from there. And we'll just sort of probe it every sort of quarter of an hour, 20 minutes. And then when it just sort of starts getting pretty tender all over, we tend to cook a little bit. The internal temperature of the meat sort of gets a bit higher, so we're probably taking it off at about 210, 212. So you do go a little bit higher than that with the internal temperature of the meat.
Why do you need to do that?
It's just when it's soft. Basically, we're just cooking it for tenderness, and that's just when it's probing soft, and it's probing consistently sort of soft all over that flat. We just take it back off again. I'm sure there's some sort of scientific explanation for it, but yeah, we just sort of just look for that temperature and just start probing it for tenderness after that, basically. So, I mean, it's just all about practicing too. Just keep doing it and doing it until you sort of get it right, and it sort of becomes sort of second nature after a while. And just looking at the color of the smoke coming off the multi-cue and that too. So as soon as it starts getting a little bit of a blue tinge to it, you sort of know that fat's sort of starting to char up a bit on the bottom of it. And just keeping it, smelling it too. You can sort of smell it on the smoke. You can just smell that starting to char a bit, so we sort of know it's starting getting to the wrapping stage by then too.
Yeah, right. That was one of the things that I wanted to ask was, we keep trying to say, the thin blue smoke, and you want to keep that smoke clean and you want that nice flavor. If the fat is dripping down and hitting the charcoal, and you're saying that adds to the flavor, wouldn't that be like almost a bit too close to like a bitter burning smell?
No, it doesn't actually. I imagine if you let it go a little bit too far, that would happen. but no, that doesn't tend to. I think probably because the coals aren't that hot at the bottom. There's quite a bit of space between the coals and the tray that the meat's on. So no, we haven't experienced that yet, and we have overdone some ribs at home on it, and that'll be the only time you get that burnt flavour on your meat is if you actually burn the meat yourself rather than the taste of the burning fat coming back up. I think once it hits, I think it pretty much evaporates. I think that fat would just evaporate anyway because when we lift the firebox out, there's no fat or anything in the bottom of the chamber. It's just all ash. So I think once it hits the charcoal, I think it just disappears basically. Just evaporates.
Self-cleaning, I can dig that.
Self-cleaning, yeah, for sure.
So do you have to leave more fat on the brisket than you otherwise would if you're doing it hot and fast versus like a 225 12-hour cook?
Yeah, we try and leave about 5 mil on the bottom of it, and just a nice consistent layer. Not too many, the depth of it. We try and keep a nice even layer. But I mean, sometimes it's hard to sort of do that with depending on how the brisket's been processed and that. So, you've just got to keep an eye on it. But I mean, I think the fat content of those, the Carrara briskets is pretty forgiving as well. You can sort of almost overdo them, and they still, the integrity of the product just keeps itself all together. So it doesn't fall apart or go mushy if you do overdo it. So
okay,
I think that's a big factor as well. I think that the higher quality meat that you cook, the more forgiving that it would be. If you had a grass-fed brisket, I mentioned your margin for error would be a lot lower. So yeah, I mean we don't sort of cook briskets every day. I mean most of the briskets we do are at comps now, so it's probably the process that we do. We sort of don't do too many home cooked briskets.
yeah, right. I can certainly understand that. Yeah. Now, you also mentioned a 4-hour pork butt. Is there much of a difference in the process between doing a 4-hour brisket and a 4-hour pork butt?
Not really. No, they go on at the same time, and it's just how it's developed basically. I mean, I can almost time it to the minute that it's going to be 4 hours. So if I probe it at 3:30, it's still still a bit to go. Probe it at the 4-hour mark, and it's just butter. So we just take it off and rest it in the Canberra. It's just seemed to have been an evolved. It's just the way that it's happened. So we're sort of cooking about 2.5 kilo pork collar butts.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, they've got no bone in them or anything like that. So yeah, it's just how it's evolved, and it's sort of just the way it's happened, and it's just the way we run with it. And we've had great pork scores, so lots of 300s in that. So not gonna change anything.
No, not at all. Not at all. Is the resting process different when you're doing a hot and fast cook?
I haven't really noticed it. I mean, we do rest it for a good hour or two. Anyway, and I think that's just mainly just to let the fat sort of settle down a bit, because I mean basically the fat's boiling on the inside there, so I think you've just got to let that settle down a bit, and just let the meat sort of just relax a bit, and just take the stop the cooking process for a start, and just let it rest and just sort of get back to a stabilized temperature, I think. But we'll sort of cut it up pretty much straight away with a half-hour rest, and there hasn't been a lot of difference between a short rest and a long rest. Put it that way, I haven't really noticed a lot of absorption, back up of the liquid or anything like that. And I think that's basically just come down to the quality of the meat that we're using. So I think a grass-fed brisket, a long rest would suit that better, because it could just reabsorb a lot of that moisture back up too, and end up with a better result at the end of the day too.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Alrighty, cool. So I'm going to bring up a question here, and it has come to us from Brian Jarvis over in Atlanta, Georgia. So he would like to know, what is your favorite category at competitions?
Oh, I would say it'd have to be brisket. I mean, we just love cooking beef, love cooking brisket. It's just one of those. Yeah, it's just one of those polarizing, proteins. I think that's why you sort of get into barbecue, to cook a brisket. I think that's what everybody's goal is to cook a brisket when they first get into barbecue. And after a few goes, you finally nail one, and I think it's one of the best feelings I think you can get. And just to see the look on people's faces when they're tasting that brisket for the first time, and it's just it's magic.
Yeah, no doubt about that at all, mate. It's my personal favorite as well.